Hi, I'm Paul Roberts, and this is Conscious Counseling 101, and I made a breakthrough. These last couple of weeks, my heart was heavy. I had people in my family that thought one way, and I thought another way, and I thought, there's got to be something wrong with this. And I know Jesus came and he said that I did not come to bring peace, but because of me, brother will be against brother, and so on and so on. And I thought, yes, okay, that is the way it is in the world, but does it have to be the way if we don't want it to be that way? And I reasoned, no, it can't be. That it has to be that way. It just is going to be that way. So I had a problem, and I looked at somebody else's problem, and I took Jesus' teachings to talk to them about what we should do, and I wasn't able to make a breakthrough. It actually caused an alienation. Jesus' teaching shouldn't have done that. So I thought on it for, I'd say, almost a month now. It was about the abortion issue. The abortion issue was that in man's limited perspective, you either have to vote conservative or liberal, and if you vote liberal, you're allowing abortions, so you've got to vote conservative no matter how much problem there is with the candidate and what other things he does to the world. And then the catalyst was one of my family members, a cousin of mine, had a nice little Snoopy drawing on her page that she shared on Facebook. And Facebook is so this or that. There's no middle. And I knew something was wrong. And I went to God in prayer, and I came up with what it is. And it's very simple. We ate, according to Genesis, from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. We did not eat from the tree of life. This means we're all doomed or we're going to die. And even though we were created in God's image, according to Genesis, we still have limited perspectives. We're not all powerful like God. We have these two eyes with this brain. We don't have a broader perspective. So we see very limited what we see. And we think either this must be this or this must be this, but it can't be both. But with God, it can be both. And that's what we're missing. So I saw this little drawing of Snoopy on my cousin's page, and it said, got a little cup of coffee, says, time to put on some coffee, put on some worship music, and just sit back, chill, and let God do all the work, or what the rest is. I can't remember the exact quote. And I said to myself, that's what I grew up with. I grew up with that mentality, that we could just come forward, say we profess our faith in Jesus, because all are saved that believe in the Son, and it's over. Just hang out with those guys. Don't do anything wrong, and you're going to be fine. It's a very limited and narrow spectrum of what Jesus wants from us. And there's something wrong with it. But at the same time, I'm glad that they wanted to do it. Their heart called them. So there can't be something wrong with it. It's just not a fulfilled spiritual journey yet. So it came to me. There are two Jesus' teachings that would seem to the untrained, limited perspective viewpoint that they're contradictory. One is, the master gave 1 talent, 5 talents, 10 talents. Another version was 1 talent, 3 talents, 5 talents to 3 different people. Went away, and those 3 people did what they were going to do. The master came back. The one that he gave the most talents to said, hey, master, I have done this while you were gone, and now I have invested these talents, and you have something more. The next person that wasn't given quite as much said, I have done this, I've invested, I've done this, and now I have this to give you back and more. The person that didn't get very many said, well, master, I was concerned you didn't give me very much to work with, so I just buried it in the ground, but here you go, here's your talent. But the master was not pleased with that person. He was pleased with the first 2, but he wasn't pleased with that person because that person didn't do anything. He was not worth his salt. He wasn't even a valuable person to give even the 1 talent to. So I took that teaching and I said, okay, that's one way of looking at what Jesus bestows upon us with the work he did in the Holy Spirit and God. But there's another one. One time Jesus gave this teaching. He said, someone came to the master and said, Master, over the night, an enemy of ours has sown weeds into our field. What should we do? Should we pull them up? Jesus says, no, you may risk, if you pull them up, pulling up some of the good plants. We can't be doing that. What we'll do is we'll allow the weeds to grow along with the other plants. And when we have the harvest day, you'll separate. We'll have the good harvest pieces of the nice harvest foods that we have, and we'll take the bundled weeds and we'll throw them in the fire. So don't worry about this that this evil person has done to our crops, it'll all work out. These are both seemingly to a limited perspective, diametrically opposed Jesus teachings. I've abandoned knowing. And yet I have 5 things that I say I don't know about. How can that be? Well, I've abandoned knowing because I know no one can be certain of anything. And so therefore I know that everything I think is not knowing. It's faith-based only. I've subscribed to only a faith-based, Jesus teaching point of view of life as I filter all things that I see in the world. There are still 5 things approximately that you've seen in some of my other videos. I say I don't have an answer to. I say I don't know. I don't know anything, but I really don't have an answer to these things. And they have to do with the differences between the Jew or the chosen person and that covenant in the Old Testament that was shown what they would gain if they served and did right and were righteous and holy, and what would happen to them if they did not. In the end, they did not, as a total unit, do what they were supposed to do. And Jesus came and he gave a last opportunity to have a direct connection to God. We subscribed onto that because we, the non-Jews, saw what a wonderful opportunity this was. And some of those people that had the chance to have everything as chosen people didn't even recognize who Jesus was or what he was saying or what he was doing. So this is one of the things. This has produced a few things that I don't know about, such as, I'll just give you one today that I can think of, and I'm not going to talk about it. I'll talk about it in future videos. One of the things I can think about is not one stroke will be added to or taken away from the law. But the law wasn't for me. So later on we see that Paul says, neither Jew nor Gentile. What does this mean? Paul is my namesake. Saul, Paul. This is how I was named Paul. My parents were deeply involved in the church. And I think what's being shown here is that it's not limited like we see in human perspectives. It can be this and this at the same time, and neither at the same time. This is a broad concept. So let's go back to these 2 Jesus teachings. How can you have one teaching that says, if you do nothing and don't use what I've given you, I'll see you as a failure and look down at you. Whereas on the other hand, you have a teaching that Snoopy is showing, just sit back, relax, God will take care of it. Because that's what Jesus instructed when the weeds were sown. We see weeds everywhere we look on the broad road paved to destruction. Our political leaders, the way people conduct themselves in life. We see probably more of that if we're judgmental, and we should try not to be judgmental so we see less of it. But the truth of the matter is, we're asked not to try to determine what the difference between the weeds and the harvest is right now while it's growing up until the judgment day. We're asked not to. By being asked not to, we are given the ability and the way of knowing how not to judge. That's big. But with that, if we sit back and do nothing and let God do it completely, then we haven't done what we've been asked to do with our talents. Why can this be so? I'd like to submit to you for the same reason why every Facebook post either says everybody on the right is wrong or everybody on the left is wrong, is because man can only see things through a very veiled and limited perspective. One of the reasons Conscious Counseling 101 tries to bombard through this is because we know that it can't possibly be that way, that everything can't be all wrong on one side and everything can't be all right on the other side. We know this. But even though we're heightened conscious, we don't know why. We don't know how. Many videos I've said that the difference between man and animal is that we can fathom the infinite. What I'm going to share with you now is just a fathoming. It's because God doesn't see things as this or that. God sees all things as unified. And in all the this or that we're limited to with our narrow perspective, that's all blown away if we had the perspective that God has, but we don't have it. So in the meantime, what do we need to have? We need to have the fathoming understanding that God sees these things for more than we see them to with our little Facebook posts. We need to realize that there's more to it. And when we do, that's how peace will come, because we won't judge our brother. We'll know there's more too. All of the things. That's what we all need.